How do I learn how to remote view? Like the McMoneagle guy who has a lot of videos about him on YouTube?
Better learn Enochian magic.
Join the CIA.
Controlled remote viewing is where you are given a blind target. Meaning, someone else picks the target or subject, and then gives you usually just a string of random numbers/letters and tells you to record your impressions. After the assignment you may or may not be told the results. That's the kind of remote viewing being done by McMoneagle and others. Without any information given beforehand, you aren't front-loading information that could skew your results. If you want to learn how to do it, just start meditating and quiet your conscious mind. You have to be open to impressions rising from your subconscious mind. There's lots of books and vids on how to do it, but that is the essence. If you end up a homeless crack-addicted Satanist a year later, that's on you.
There are two things called remote viewing. One is actually being able to see what your eyes wouldn't be able to see from where you are. The other is knowing things that your future self will know, including how pictures will look like. For the former you need to learn a protocol and a teacher that has already taught others how to remote view and practice. For the latter, just get used to send messages to yourself into the past, and receive them from your future self. After a while you'll start receiving nonsensical messages like leave a $10 bill under the mattress of your front door. But if you follow instructions the reasoning will make sense and you'll get advantages from your future self to take some actions or avoiding them early. The problem with this second kind of remote viewing is that, if there's a piece of information that you want, but your future self will not be able to get it either, then you can't get it. That's why people practice with the former method, so they can get information they wouldn't have in the future, so this is the only way.
What was the wackiest message you got from your future self before?
It's now or never. When I was thinking about inviting a cute cashier to my home, we ended up sleeping together. She ended up being only interested in money and the material, so I cut her from my life. But I guess that was the right moment to do it.
Remote viewing is such a stupid term. It is just traditional scrying, divination. The CIA STARGATE program invented the term to avoid any occult links that would mess up their funding grants. The STARGATE program also messed up the distinction between astral projection and remote viewing, scrying. Using astral projection to gather information is overkill. You are moving your astral body to a remote location, forcing it into the physical plane at that location, all just to see something you can do by any divination, scrying method. You are also putting yourself at risk by having your astral body in a potentially dangerous place.
So what's the difference between remote viewing and scrying, divination? What's the difference between astral projection and remote viewing? Why use astral projection for doing things that can be done through scrying, divination? Remote viewing is a CIA term from the STARGATE project used to avoid any links to the occult, magic so as to not draw ridicule. If you read the STARGATE material, in the subsequent gateway experience, you will find they used astral projection as a tool for spying and generally mix it in with so-called remote viewing. It is a mess of a system, doing things that are beyond what is needed, confusing terminology and actually putting users at risk through exposing their astral body.
Remote viewing is using your mind's eye, third eye, inner vision to view things at a distance. Scrying is using a physical object by itself, like the reflective glass of a mirror or a crystal ball, or with liquid, like water in a bowl.
Or instead of wasting your time reading a lot of new age nonsense, you could try practices that have been tried and tested for centuries. I mean, just look at this graph attached from those who started the remote viewing trend.
That isn't from who started the remote viewing trend. That is Robert Monroe, and that's the Gateway Project, which is for OAB. Again, posters are just bringing unrelated stuff in here. Op asked about remote viewing. Those books are about remote viewing. Would he be better off with, insert centuries old practice here? Maybe. But that's for a different thread.
I believe some methods for remote viewing can be dangerous, like using astral projection or some kind of OOBE method, as you are sending some of you, your consciousness, or perhaps what might be called your astral body, out. You are sending something out, something that can be detected and even trapped or harmed in some way. Most of these practices don't talk about protection or hiding. With other methods of remote viewing such as traditional scrying or various divination practices, you aren't sending anything of you out, you are drawing the information in, to your seeing stone, mirror, tarot, runes, whatever. Doing this along with traditional protection methods such as a circle, banishing, amulets, angels etc. is much safer, though I believe it can still be detected.
The going out. Anon, these are attempted replications of prior systems. As such, their derivation substantiates their inferiority. Those in question do not require these circles, banishments, amulets, and so on that all of you think you need. You'll remember, having read enough of the books to participate in this conversation, that they all early on explain how magic works in layers, and the more layers you pile on, the more courtship and pageantry that distracts the feminine materializations, the more potent the magic. So when you consider all of these layers of protection and preparatory processes, they should be understood as flavor amplifications of your dish or other such enhancements to the book you're writing or song you're singing. You need exactly none of the pageantry. The idea you need to make a circle and sit in it or whatever else is entirely misunderstood. You take those steps to lock you into the mind state necessary. Just like you don't need to chant, wear magic robes, wear a ring, necklace, or any other attire, just like you don't need any implements, any special wallpaper, any focused orientation or a bowl of rose water, you don't even need banishments. Once again, for the right people, you just sort of start doing it one day. Everyone else is wearing 18 layers of metaphorical clothing to try to look like these guys, but it doesn't matter how many fucking sweaters or pairs of socks you put on. Once again, this notion that Maebel stuffs is in the higher realms is hilarious. You don't have access if you do Maebel stuffs. Simply ask yourselves how many professional athletes you're aware of who binge drink all the time. Ask yourself how many military generals you know of who all have little drive for justice or temperance. Do you think the best artists you know are all afflicted with unmanageable sloth? It doesn't work like that. No need to overcomplicate things.
It's okay Anon, you don't need a circle.
Once again, the only people trying to convince everyone to not do astral stuff are people who prefer that they didn't do it in an unmanageable environment. If someone were, hypothetically, capable of doing such a thing, it would have massive implications for stuff. Obviously I won't elaborate. Anyone who is capable should do it. No, you don't need some special grimoire to figure it out. You don't need any magical knife. You don't need any GD, any Hebrew, any mantras. There's not even a requirement for specific visualization or energy routines. There's only one real requirement to being a real boy who can do real magic. They aren't very fond of us talking about this though. It's why they always swoop in with their trite, but guys, bad stuff might happen. Well, who do you think will punish you for doing it without their consent? Take a guess. I've already given you several clues.
They say you build the astral body. I'd rather suggest it's about remembering how to use it. Multiple states of you exist simultaneously right here and right now. The intersection of physical nature and divine nature is what constitutes your physical body. Non-physical elements comprise your astral body. This is another aspect to your person. New Age. You cannot proceed without more refined virtue. It's the rule across the board. I don't know why any of you ever accept this shit when the retards tell you about it. Susceptible to attack. That's not how this works, guys. Those forces are subordinate to or derivative of the higher forces. Feel free to make an attempt at doing bad stuff in Mu astral body. See how that goes for you. You guys know that governments all around the world hunt for people with specific genetics, primarily because they're far more disposed to these activities and secondarily because they themselves are not capable, right? Normies can't just into Mu astral body like you guys want. Those sorts of abilities are all predicated upon the same type of training that any of you who claim to understand remote viewing are capable of. Most call it monkish or ascetic training. But it's just a refinement of the soul, and apotheosis only really has one direction. This notion that you can be less super evil bad guy but somehow develop all the discipline needed to not just enter but hold samadhi is fucking ludicrous. All of the evils of our world are fueled by the exact opposite natured processes. What fucking monk do you know runs around fueling all his magic with avarice and sloth? That's retarded. Why do you people not feel like idiots for saying this shit? It's repugnant.
Haven't seen this infographic in ages.
A former Army officer, Joe McMonagle, was part of a top-secret research program run by the Defense Intelligence Agency and CIA for over 20 years. Only recently declassified, the STARGATE project examined a variety of phenomena, especially one known as remote viewing.
Remote viewing means the ability to remotely perceive information about a person, place, event, object that you have absolutely no access to through any other means except via the mind.
Beginning in the 1950s, the United States government explored the use of extrasensory perception for intelligence operations, with officials worried that the Soviets were ahead in the psychic arms race. Joe had already developed a reputation for his intuitive powers.
When you use the ability for so many years, you inherently begin to trust it more than you do other people because you're applying it on a day-to-day basis.
In 1972, Joe was recruited as remote viewer number 001. He would ultimately participate in hundreds of missions.
In Joe's case, I was the judge, and the results were astounding, not only for him, but overall for the entire group, which caught our attention. We were doing mostly operational work, where they might say, well, we expect something to happen a month from now. What can you tell us about it?
The first precognitive remote viewing that I did after I got angry. There was an admiral in the National Security Council who brought my remote viewing back to me and said that they basically did not believe that there was a submarine being built in a building in Severodvinsk, Russia. It made me very angry. They said they didn't believe it because the building was 1,000 meters from the sea. I said, go back and tell them they're going to launch it in 114 days. And the Typhoon-class submarine was launched from the building within 7 days of my prediction.
Today, they are running a test to see whether Joe can describe a photograph that he will be shown in the future.
This is a precognition trial, and what I mean by that is the computer, and nor I, nor anybody here will know the target until you finish your response to that target. It'll be randomly chosen when we're all done.
The task in these particular remote viewings, precognitively describe the photograph. That's the task. If I don't describe the picture, I'm wrong.
Please access and describe a photograph that you will see on this computer a few minutes from now.
One of the difficulties in remote viewing is probably its title, because one of the things it implies is that you're actually seeing something. In some cases, you're not. The thing that I do, and at least the way I approach it, is I try to empty my mind to open a stage where the next thing that I allow in is what I expect to be pertinent to the target. I'm left with kind of an image of a building with an entry gate with walls. I hesitate to say fortress, but it's some kind of walls.
I think that what Joe is doing is like what anybody else does, that our mind is not locked inside our brain. Our mind exists, in some sense, exists everywhere. We mostly think of it as being in there, which is why we're limited to mostly sensory information, but that's an illusion in a sense. We're actually more spread out in space and time than we know. So what Joe does and what other people like him do is change the focus of their attention. In a sense, that's all he does. He changes the focus of attention from mostly in here to tomorrow, or to 10 minutes over there.
Is that about it?
That's it.
All right. While I do the judging, if you wouldn't mind excusing yourself.
Sure.
We'll see you later. We'll call you back when it's all done. The computer chooses 5 pictures at random, very carefully done so, without any knowledge of what Joe's drawing was. And at this stage of the little experiment, it's precognition, so the actual answer has yet to be chosen. What I do now is to try to match these 5 photographs that I'm looking at to the one that best matches this response, and one of them appears to be a very solid match. My first place match is a Middle Eastern, clearly Middle Eastern village, and it has a walled enclosure exactly like you drew. Now that the judging is complete, where I've picked what I think is the right answer, we ask the computer to randomly pick one of these 5 pictures as the target. I'll switch around here, and it's a building.
Yeah.
You said mosque-like in one of the things.
Yeah.
It certainly has that. It's got the spires. It is brown. You can't come to any conclusion on the basis of a single draw. It could have been lucky. On the other hand, the lifetime average of Joe is somewhere a little under 50%, where 20% is chance. And the statistical likelihood of that is it should never happen by chance alone.